This morning, the board met with about 600 employees of the district to answer questions and to explain to them the process that we've undertaken and the reasons that we got to the decision of a mutual separation. So that's what leads us to this meeting today. Despite what I've seen on the internet, there was no sinister or other motive to having the meeting today, except that we wanted to get the information out as quickly as we could and as completely as we could. So to that end, the administrators were notified on Thursday morning at their goal-setting meeting. Immediately after that meeting, I spoke with the head of the teachers union for about an hour and a half. I then had to go on a business trip. I made arrangements to meet with the head of the support staff union on Saturday morning. I met with her for about an hour and a half on Saturday morning. I also then contacted the head of the transportation union and discussed the situation with him. I can tell you that as a result of those meetings and the information that was provided, there has been 100% support from the administrators of the district for the board's decision that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. The leaders of the unions have all been very supportive of our decision. This morning, I would say I don't know whether it was unanimous support, but I will tell you that it was overwhelming support from the employees of the district who attended the meeting today. So the first thing I want to discuss are the rumors that are out there. There are a lot of them. They're not kind. I will tell you that this decision has nothing to do with Rodney Green, the person. We have no problem with Rodney Green, the person. He is a decent man who has a long history and a good reputation for his work in other districts. There was nothing earth-shattering that led to this decision. There's no one single event that brings us today. This was a year-long process that we undertook, an evaluative process. We gathered as much data as we possibly could to do the annual evaluation of the superintendent. Each year, the school board meets with the superintendent at the end of the school year to do a full evaluation of performance. Throughout the year, the board was hearing from parents, from students, from administrators, and from teachers. Certain issues that were brought to our attention that caused some concern for us and whether the relationship with the superintendent was going to be one that was going to be fruitful and one that was going to last a long time. For the performance evaluation, the board met several times in an executive session, which have been announced in public meetings. Most recently, I should announce that we did meet after our last public meeting. We met in executive session also to address this issue. We met with our attorneys to talk about this personnel issue. At that meeting, the board asked if I would, on behalf of the board, meet with Dr. Green to complete the performance evaluation. I can tell you that the evaluation essentially was that we did not think that the relationship was working. We did not think that the district was advancing the educational mission, on the educational mission of the district, was advancing under his leadership, and that we did not feel that just counting time and waiting for the contract to expire was going to advance the educational mission of the district, or we didn't have hopes that there would be enough trust built among the administrative staff and among the school board to continue the relationship that we had. After that meeting, or at the conclusion of that meeting, Dr. Green agreed that we should begin negotiating a mutual separation agreement. So I said that there was no big earth-shattering reason for this. So the question is why? Why is this happening? What did the board do to evaluate the superintendent's performance? I can say that this is a decision that was not reached lightly. There was a significant amount of discussion among the school board. There was a great amount of debate on the procedures we should undertake and how, what our obligations were. What our obligations were to Dr. Green, what our obligations were to the students of the school district, what our obligations were to the employees of the district, and what our obligations were to the taxpayers in this community. It was a very difficult decision for us. After weighing the pros and cons of the decision, the board believed it was in the best interest of the students, the faculty, and ultimately the entire community to enter into this agreement that we're going to talk about tonight. Even though it will come at a significant financial cost to the district. The school board believes that continuing along with the relationship with Dr. Green would not have furthered the mission of the district. And the primary mission of this district is the education of the kids. The focus of the district and the district administrators should be on the educational mission and the education of our children. Some of the things, well, let me just talk a little bit about the process that we undertook. To complete the evaluation, the board came together to discuss what process we would undertake to complete this evaluation. Because we have been hearing things from administrators informally, that they were passing along information that teachers had asked that come to the school board. Parents have been calling school board members with certain information. In light of that, as president of the board, I decided that the best path we should take at that point was to break the board down into small groups of 2. There was one group of 3 board members. I then went through the administrative staff and I picked out what I believe was a good cross-section of administrators, from the high schools, the middle schools, elementary schools, non-instructional administrators. And I assigned them confidentially to each of the groups. The groups of school board members did not know who the other members were interviewing. The only person who knew all the administrators that were being interviewed was me. The reason for that was that the administrators had their own experiences and had asked that their meetings be confidential. They believed they were under instructions that they were not permitted to speak with board members directly. So to alleviate their concerns, I did it as confidentially as we possibly could. In addition to those formal interviews, there were approximately 20. There were 20 administrators who were interviewed formally. There were probably another 20 administrators who were interviewed informally. In addition to that, board members were invited to, and I know that they did speak informally to teachers. They spoke informally to parents, friends, to get a feel for whether the mission of the school district was being met. Many of the things that the board learned, I'm precluded from talking about some of the specifics of what we learned through those interviews. That has to do with the agreement that was eventually negotiated. Not necessarily my preference, but that's what was negotiated. But I would say this, for specifics. For parents out there, you are free to speak with the principals at your school. And they can fill you in on their experiences. Speak to your child's teachers. They will fill you in on their experiences. For the specifics that I can talk about, the board, the administrators, teachers, parents began noticing things early on, and discussions were had with Dr. Green early on about performance and about what was needed in this district for a district this size and for the students, and how to complete and meet the educational mission of the district. Some items that I can talk about early on. The school calendar after the hurricane. It's the job of the board to determine the school calendar. The board sets the number of days the children will go to school. Paul Faulkner was the president of the board at the time. There were discussions, I know, about how do we manage the school calendar. It was the board's desire to continue with the 184 school days. Instead of having a discussion about that with the board, the calendar was taken to the home school associations and presented to them to get approval from them. It was then brought to the board. At that time, board members asked if the administrators had been consulted and whether their input was included into the calendar. And the board was told at a meeting that yes, the administrators were consulted, their input was included in the calendar, as were the teachers. Immediately after that meeting, some of the board members were contacted by administrators and teachers, and were told that not only was their advice not sought, I mean, it just wasn't sought at all, and so it wasn't included in this decision. From that, there was obviously trust issues that began at that point. There were discussions about that. Another thing that happened immediately or soon after Dr. Green's arrival was that, and I don't remember the date, I do remember it was the night that the board was getting their pictures taken for the website. Dr. Green pulled each board member individually aside and said that he wanted to run for a position as the president of the AASA, which is the American Association of School Administrators. I wasn't really sure what it was at the time, and I can tell you from my conversation, I was told that it was basically a figurehead position. This was a group that exchanged information back and forth. Every so often, the president might be called down to testify before Congress if there was a big educational issue, but really the president's seat was more of a figurehead position. My understanding from the other board members that had similar conversations, my response to that conversation was, that's fine. I was told that it was going to be in the best interest. It was good for the district. And I mean, quite frankly, I didn't really know what it was. I just thought that, we should trust in this, and that was fine. After those meetings took place and the individual board members gave their consent to this, some of the board members looked into it and found that this was actually a very significant position. It was a position that was going to take 3 years. It would be 1 year as the president-elect, and 1 year as president-elect, 1 year as president, and 1 year as president emeritus. It would require at least 1/4 of the time of the superintendent to be outside of the district. So much so that this association would pay the district, I believe the number was $52,000, which would be about 1/4 of the salary of the superintendent. Obviously, we were a little surprised by that. A meeting was held to discuss displeasure with running for that position. Some of the questions, Dr. Green's question as to whether he wanted to be here in this district. It seemed to the board that we had just hired him to pay him a significant salary, and he was looking outside to do some other stuff outside of this district. There was concern about the comments that this was basically a figurehead position, and that the board felt that the new superintendent coming into this district had to spend his time in the district getting to know the demographics of the district, getting to know the educational basis of the district, and spending the time for the work that we had hired him to do. I know that after that meeting, the board was then told by some folks that I would say that meeting was, while an executive session was rather heated at times. But I thought that the message was pretty clear of where we stood with that. It then came to the board's attention that there was some campaigning being done in other districts to get votes in support of that position. So that also caused us some concern. We saw a similar thing with the budget process. As you know, this year, the board approved the budget with a 0% tax increase, which is fine and good, but the process was not. The way that the budget generally operates here with the school board is that the board meets in the finance committee monthly. The budget is presented to the finance committee. Issues on the budget are debated openly. We do it publicly. If there are cuts that are going to be done, the board debates those, whether we're going to do those cuts or not. Tax increase is obviously a significant part of what we do, and we would discuss those in the finance committee meetings. There are then regular presentations made at public board meetings. When I say public board meetings, I should say the general board meeting instead of a committee meeting, based on the work that the finance committee had done that month. So that's how generally we see a budget come in at a certain rate, and we see it whittled down as we go through that work and the budgeting process. In this case, the budget is not due until June. In this year, a few months ago, at one of the finance committee meetings, a comment was made that we would like to see, one of the board members commented that he would like to see us try to get to a 0% budget this year. The response wasn't we will work on it, the response says we'll do that. Immediately that Friday we received a notice that there was going to be a 0% tax increase budget without any debate by the school board. As president of the board, I've heard a lot from my fellow members on that. I contacted Dr. Green and told him I thought it was a mistake to just hand the board a budget of 0% tax increase after we had been told it was going to be a 3.7% tax increase. There was no debate, no discussion, no nothing. All of a sudden there was a 0% tax increase. I explained to him that the process that we had to go through was one that had to be open and public, that we needed to discuss how we were getting to this point. I was told that no, everything's all good. It's all good. We're going to go forward with this. I said, okay, we'll talk about this some more. The next week, again, we had a telephone conversation where I again discussed the process and that this was not a good situation, that the board was having no input in this, and there was no explanation of where the money was and where the money was going, or if there were going to be any cuts to any programs or anything like that. I was told, all good, don't worry about it. That Friday afternoon, the the school board meeting was going to be the next Tuesday. I called again to Dr. Green and I said, this is a mistake. Do not do this. This should not be out in a public meeting. The board does not wait in there. The Finance Committee meeting where the suggestion of the 0% was done, there was one member of our Finance Committee attending that meeting. There were other board members there, but they're not members of that committee. So there wasn't even a proper vote to take it out of that committee and go to the board with what was suggested at that meeting. I was told that it was too late, that it was out. He'd already emailed it out to people and that it was just going to have to be presented. I was not able to attend the Tuesday night meeting. I said to him, I did not think that it was proper to do a presentation on the 0% budget when the board did not have any consultation and was not able to weigh in on it. The presentation went forward. So again, this is not a complaint about a 0% budget. It is a complaint about the process and the openness with which we came to this. The board frequently hears about that people are pleased with Dr. Green's visibility, that he's in the buildings all the time. He visits my child's classroom. Through our interviews of the administrators expressed concern that so much time was being spent outside of the office. Estimates were that 2/3 of the time was spent outside of the superintendent's office. Obviously, this raised questions for the school board as to how can the work of the superintendent in a 20,000 student district be done when 2/3 of the time is spent outside of the office. So while yes, visibility is a nice thing, I'm not sure that visibility is conducive to completing the work that needs to be done in the district. Also, with respect to Twitter, there were some concerns about that. I think that some folks have expressed the fact that they liked the Twitter account. They liked that they could see what Dr. Green was doing. There are negatives that come with that. Children directly texting the superintendent, and forgive me for this, but you're the effing man, without repercussion. This is not a good thing. But it was something that we were seeing, not something that we think is served the district well. With respect to visits to the classroom, yes, there were a lot of visits to classrooms. And we could follow that on Twitter. We knew that there were a lot of visits to classrooms. The problem with the visits to the classrooms from the board's perspective, from the administrator's perspective, and from the teacher's perspective, is that there was never one single meeting, never one comment brought to any administrator or any teacher as a result of those visits. There was never a positive instructional message that came out of it. There was never any initiative that came out of those visits. They were superficial visits that did not further the mission of the district. So while yes, the visibility is nice, visibility would be nice if something was coming out of it, if there was a positive, if there was some sort of discussion, some sort of, hey, Mrs. Jones in the 3rd grade class over at Foots is doing great things here. What I would see on Twitter was great stuff happening at Foots. And, we didn't know what that meant, but we did know that there was nothing, no meetings, no nothing coming out of those visits. Other issues that came to the board's attention was the lack of communication with key administrators. At the beginning of the school year, at the beginning of Dr. Green's tenure, he held open office hours, which was a nice thing. The public was able to come. The last people that he met with were the very last people that he met with. 2 weeks into his tenure was the assistant superintendent for elementary education and the assistant superintendent for secondary education. He met with them, and sorry, Christina, but with a reporter in the room. So there was no real exchange of ideas. There was no real discussion of the educational mission. And we knew also that as the year progressed, there was very little communication, especially on the elementary level, with respect to what was happening in the classrooms and what the overall mission and plan was there. We also heard quite a bit about conduct at meetings. Late arrival, early to leave, on the phone the whole time, tweeting, things like that at meetings. That caused us great concern, especially when this was stuff that was happening at meetings that were to discuss, with the administrators, to discuss educational matters. Again, I don't want to go into the specifics of that, but certainly you can talk to any one of your principals and they will let you know what was and was not happening at those meetings. So I talked a little bit about the process of how we got here today. I think that's probably our solicitors here, so that's probably about as specific as I can get on some of these matters. But you can see that the board tried to gather as much data as we could to make an informed and proper decision that would be in the best interest of the students and the community. So a question comes, why not give them more time? We're only 9 months into this. Why not create an improvement plan where we can discuss improvement? With respect to time, the board got to the point, we're just biding time here. This is not a relationship that is going to continue on beyond this contract. So what are our obligations now? With respect to an improvement plan, we debated that. With a teacher, this district would hire a teacher and they would have 60, 90 days to kind of prove themselves. If they were successful in those 60, 90 days, they would be evaluated continuously throughout that time period. They would get a contract. They would then be on a probationary period again that would take them up to 3 years of tenure. They're constantly being evaluated. During that original 60, 90-day period, the administrators would evaluate the teacher and decide, is this a teacher that's doing well? If this is a teacher that we know right off the bat, this is a teacher we want in this district, the contract is going to be given. There's also the possibility that that teacher is not making it. And we know right off the bat, that teacher is not going to stay here. This is not somebody that fits into our system. And we would part ways with that teacher. The third option there is that the administrators see potential in this teacher, and they say, you know what, we see the potential. We don't think that you're qualified right now to have a contract, but we see the potential in you. We're going to have an improvement plan. We're going to work with you. We're going to pull that potential out of you. We're going to make you the best teacher you can possibly be. That was the option we have here with the superintendent. From the board's perspective, when you have the CEO or the superintendent of a school district who has had 20-some years of experience in that position, we did not feel like these were things that we could work to improve on. More importantly, this is a volunteer board. We are parents in the community. We can't be here on a day-to-day basis to make sure that the improvement plan is being met. The superintendent answers to one group, and that's this school board. There's nobody there to oversee it. and to make sure that things are being followed and that the improvement is actually happening. So we were left with that decision of how do we go forward from here, and ultimately the decision was to meet with him, discuss what we felt were conditions that we did not think that this relationship could continue, and then work it out from there. So to do this, obviously, negotiation began after the evaluation process. I have to say that Dr. Green is not being terminated for cause under the Pennsylvania Code. The Pennsylvania Code is very specific. The lawyers talked to us and said that the things that we were talking about at that time, even some of the things that I have not talked about today, were not sufficient to rise to the level of termination for cause under the code. So the best way to proceed here would be to discuss our decision with Dr. Green and see if he was interested in a mutual separation. Dr. Green was interested in a mutual separation at the time we met with him. He retained an attorney who negotiated with Mr. D'Angelo, our attorney on labor relations. And those negotiations began probably the Monday after Mr. D'Angelo and I met with Dr. Green. So how much is the big question. Dr. Green's contract, the base salary in his contract is $225,000. The contract had 3 years guaranteed on it. The first year was this current school year that we just finished. There were 2 more years that one certainly was guaranteed, and the third year of the contract was such that after July 31st of 2014, the board was entitled to terminate without cause by giving 1 year's notice. So, Mr. D'Angelo, so I can tell you that Dr. Green's attorneys valued the contract at $540,000. I think Mr. D'Angelo valued the contract at $470,000.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, I'm sorry. There were also other items in there, such as health insurance for a period of time, contributions to a 403B account, increases based on the Act 1 limit that was set each year. At the conclusion of the agreement that is up before the board tonight is for a payment of $365,000, paid in 2 installments. I believe one is August 9th of this year. The second half would be paid January 9th or 10th. I can't remember the date. January 10th or 9th. In addition to that, the district will provide Dr. Green with 1 year of health insurance. And Dr. Green insisted that he be entitled to keep the district-issued iPhone, iPad, and inkjet. So, those are the monetary terms. Where do we go from here? The board's going to take action on this agreement tonight. We received a signed copy from Dr. Green on Monday night. The board intends to appoint an acting superintendent at the regularly scheduled July 23rd meeting. We believe that it is in the best interest of the district at this time to appoint somebody from internally. We believe that having gone through this year and the experiences we've gone through, the discussions we've had with the administrators, the teachers, and the parents, we believe that quality of people we have in our schools are such that we can do the job internally. And it is the intention of the board to proceed that way. There is a process we are in the middle of, so I can't say who it's going to be right now, but we will have a decision made by July 23rd, and there will be an appointment of an acting superintendent at that time. I would expect that there would be an evaluation process done of the acting superintendent to determine whether or not the acting superintendent would fill the job of the permanent superintendent. Although we have more discussion that the board needs to do to make sure that we're all in agreement on the process we're going to undertake here. We have been taking this day by day and step by step. So I think that at the July 23rd meeting, I would expect to have more information on that. Some of the rumors that are out there, I will dispel right now. Dr. Laws is not coming back to be the acting superintendent. I would say that that is not something that the board has even considered, although I've seen it on Facebook, Twitter, and the newspaper on their comments. So, but that's not where we're headed. You know, we understand that this the news came as a surprise to many. I have to say, I was a little shocked and surprised by the rumors that began to fly right away. I thought that was unfair to Dr. Green. I want to say again, this is not about Rodney Green the person. And, you know, I hope that the rumors that are out there stop. I don't think that's fair to him or his family. This was just a situation where, for this board, and we thought for this community, it was in our best interest to move forward with this mutual separation. And again, I would say that this was a very difficult decision for the board. It was made only after a lot of careful thought, vigorous debate, and lengthy discussion. But I will say this, our actions on this have always been with unanimous consent of the board. We now know that we have unanimous consent and approval of the administrative staff here, and certainly an overwhelming support from the employees of the district. The easy thing to do here would have been to just let this ride and to just keep going with our heads in the sand. The hard thing to do is what we're about to do tonight. You know, these are volunteers, these are your neighbors that are up here in this board, and we, you know, we take it very seriously, our obligations to the students of the district. Our focus is always on the educational mission of the district first, and our commitment to the taxpayer second. And it's a tough balancing act sometimes, but we believe that you know, our obligation was to take the more difficult road and to enter into these negotiations and ultimately accept the agreement that we've reached. So, thank you. So the next item on our agenda tonight would be other questions or comments from board members. I don't know if any of the board members have any questions that they want to ask, or if there's any comments they want to make at this time. There will be another time shortly after this, after public comment.
Can't hear you. This is for the microphone.
Use a different one.
Yeah, that microphone's just not working.
Yeah, just use a different one.
Okay,
There you go.
sorry. All I was saying is that Mr. Ford has very well summarized my feelings and my thoughts, and if anybody had anything that they wanted to add that they didn't feel could cover.
Okay, hearing none at this time, we'll move on to public comment. We have only 2 public speakers tonight. The first is Corinne Sikora.
Good evening. As you know, my name is Corinne Sikora, and I'm one of the K-12 staff development facilitators in the district. I'm also a CD graduate, a CD teacher, taxpayer, and parent. In fact, I realized yesterday when I decided that I wanted to speak today that I was a student at Buckingham College when Dr. Newman was superintendent, a student at East when Dr. Winters was superintendent, and a teacher when Dr. Wallace was superintendent. My position as staff developer, a job that I love, allows me to work closely with teachers across the district, as well as the administrators. I wanted to speak tonight and repeat the same words I shared earlier today in this auditorium with my colleagues, and hope that I don't get choked up. As I watched the phones and social media light up with the news and the speculation surrounding Dr. Green's departure on Thursday night, I found myself wanting to jump through the computer and read each and every person's phone to share what I have seen unfold over the last 9 months. I think this venue may be an efficient way to answer the question asked of me as someone who's lived in the community my entire life and has worked for the Central School District for the past 15 years. Everything I'm about to say will be the same as if you asked me for the park, veterans, bookstore, and Chapman. If anything I say you have any questions about, please don't hesitate to ask, and stop me and ask. When the board announced that they hired Rodney Green, I was excited. I was excited because he had been the superintendent for 24 years, and this district deserves a leader who has experience. I was excited because the former district had been through our same challenges: declining enrollment, declining tax revenue, declining state revenue, and rising pension costs. I was excited that it had a desire to educate the community. We have so many awesome things going on TV, so many hard workers, so many talented students and teachers, and I was excited he wanted to promote this as much as I did. I was excited that he was a hire outside the school district. I thought it would be wonderful for our new superintendent to see the success they want to make as well, and I was excited to hear his fresh ideas. I was excited when he said at CB staff last July that he thought it was his calling to come to CB. If you know me, you know I love this community, and I want to continue to advance. And when I finally met him, I was excited because he was approachable. But in the last 9 months, I was quickly disappointed. I was disappointed that he never once attended our monthly K-12 original meetings where we discussed where students learn, how they learn, and the best way to teach them. He never came. Not once. I was disappointed when he left from important meetings before instructional conversations took place, even though they were clearly on the agenda. I was disappointed that he was invested or engaged in keeping the focus on instruction. I was disappointed that he never met with the staff development team to discuss our goal in the district. I was disappointed when I witnessed him nod off during important meetings. I was disappointed when I found out that he was running to be president of the American Association of School Administrators when I believed that he should be focused on his new job of being superintendent of the third largest school district in PA. And I was disappointed when he repeatedly made inappropriate comments to women throughout the district. I'm proud of the people who shared the same disappointments, who watched these events unfold with me during these last 9 months, and yet honored the position of the superintendent and honored our district by not succumbing to gossip. I'm proud of the board who did their due diligence and checked numerous sources, saw the pattern, and did what I know was the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Our second speaker is Jeanne Kelly.
My name is Jeannie Cayley. I am a mom of a 10-year-old at Warwick. I am currently a principal at Quitz Elementary in Doylestown. I was a teacher in the district and then was selected to begin the staff development program in Central Bucks. I have the deepest respect and admiration for the Central Bucks School District. When I was hired many years ago as a teacher, I had my first meeting, an orientation meeting, and I remember calling my mom and saying, I don't know how this happened, but I am in the best district in the country. I can tell. Just listening to the leaders of this district, I am inspired, and I only hope that I can live up to the high expectations they set in front of me. What makes Central Bucks School District stand out? What makes this district stand out is that our main focus has been on learning. Students learning, teachers learning, administrators learning, support staff learning, central office cabinet learning, and board members learning. It starts at the top, or at least it always had started at the top. Having experienced the district over more than a 20-year period, I can tell you that things were going to change, and not for the better. I will not get into specifics, but would rather try to help you see the big picture. This past year, there was a definite lack of focus on academics, a lack of vision and specificity of goals, a lack of interest in the ideas, insights, and recommendations of others. Rather than being